I have more to say about Jim O'Callaghan. Somebody was commenting about the Epstein files, so let's talk about that. A woman told the FBI she was trafficked to Ireland as a 13-year-old for sex with politicians and notable men. That is in the US Department of Justice document release. Gardaí confirmed to the Irish Times in February that no investigation is underway. Garda HQ stated it had no record of any referral or formal complaint being received on this matter. Labour TD Duncan Smith raised it with the Dáil and wrote to the Taoiseach demanding international cooperation for a proper inquiry. Even Tánaiste Simon Harris said he would discuss it with the Taoiseach and with the Minister for Justice, Jim O'Callaghan, the man who controls whether or not the Gardaí will investigate. He said no. He doesn't want them to investigate. Now, why would you say that, Jim? Why not? The state's position is that there's nothing to investigate because no one has formally complained. That's a circular logic. The state controls the complaint mechanism and has not activated it. There are over 1,600 documents referencing Ireland in the Epstein files. The Irish barrister Paul Tweed represented Epstein in 2011. Epstein's associates were in contact about a potential 10 billion AIB asset deal at the height of the financial crisis. A helicopter previously owned by an Irish construction firm, Boval Developers, Fianna Fáil donors during the Ahern period, was purchased by a company associated with Epstein. His Garda Powers Bill from 2026. So, announced on the 27th of December 2025, over the Christmas break, quietly, they gave Garda powers to seize and search journalists' digital devices, including encrypted phones, without a judicial approval. Legal privilege is absolute. Apparently, journalistic privilege is not. Sinn Féin Senator Nicole Ryan said the bill fails to explicitly recognise the right of journalists to protect their confidential sources. Newsbrand Ireland said journalists should be able to assert privilege before their device is seized, not after. The Irish Council for Civil Liberties demanded reinsertion of explicit human rights safeguard. He has this year removed human rights safeguarding for journalists. The International Protection Bill that was published in January 2026, he wrote this, and he describes it himself as the most significant reform of Irish asylum laws in the history of the state. It introduces a 3-month limit on asylum decisions. So all asylum decisions have to be made within 3 months, no matter what the context or circumstances. It means anyone who comes to Ireland has to wait 3 years and prove to the Irish state that they are not a burden. A financial self-sufficiency test has to be done before their family can join them, before they can see their children again, before their children can be moved out of a war zone. He's a sneaky snake, and Sinn Féin's Matt Carty noted O'Callaghan filed 75 pages of amendments mid-passage. So after the children's liberties groups had read this, he completely changed it with 75 pages of amendments. And everybody agrees that this bill was drafted recklessly. Nonetheless, it is pushing ahead and it will go into force in June. Nobody seems to be able to stop or slow this down at all, not even the Senate. It is toxic. Also rushed through in 2026. These are all, we're only in fucking April. It's the 10th of April and he has already completely just reformed the entire Irish judiciary without any consent. Civil Reform Bill 2026 introduces a public interest test to gate judicial review. Would have moved planning and immigration challenges from the High Court to the Circuit Court, the court that hears magistrate level cases. It was withdrawn under pressure last month, but the public interest gate remains, and they will bring that back in some shape or form. It doesn't die when it gets withdrawn under pressure. They just get more sneaky and more gaslighty with the language. The Bar of Ireland said it was a radical curtailment of human rights. Look at what this guy is trying to do right now at every level. Fourth bill of 2026 is his criminal law and civil law miscellaneous provisions bill. Includes a presumption of non-disclosure on counselling notes in sexual assault trials. The Oireachtas Justice Committee recommended a complete ban. This is where you're using the victim's private therapy notes in court. For what reason? The Justice Committee said that this is unconstitutional. The Dublin Rape Crisis Centre said his refusal to legislate for a complete ban is a choice. It is unconstitutional and it is not a legal constraint. He is deliberately leaving the door open for judges to disclose trauma counselling notes in rape trials. This is the same guy who will not investigate the Epstein connections despite the numerous mentions of Ireland in those files. He also doesn't want privacy for victims of rape. The same man who controls the judicial review legislation introduced a bill making it harder to challenge the state's decisions in court. The same man, he controls the asylum legislation, and he introduced simultaneous deportation orders and reduced family rights. The man who controls the sex crimes legislation refused to ban accessing rape survivors' counselling notes in court. Every single one of those decisions is made from the same place of corruption. Things that benefit the state and his cronies and the powerful at the expense of survivors, journalists, migrants, and citizens who want to challenge their corrupt power. He has a master's in criminology from Cambridge University. British criminology as a discipline was born from the management of the empire. The Metropolitan Police Act of 1829, the foundational document of modern British policing, was developed in direct continuity with colonial policing in Ireland. The Irish Royal Constabulary was the model. The peelers were trained in Ireland before they were deployed in England. Academic work on decolonising criminology notes that decolonisation did not dismantle the colonial roots of the cultural, social, and political mechanisms informing contemporary punishment. They say in mainstream Cambridge-style criminology persistently neglects the relationship between colonialism and crime control. Maynooth University's criminology program notes that Ireland is England's first colony and that studying criminology in Ireland requires confronting the interrelationship between the Catholic gender role and the state's goal of reinforcing its own sovereignty. That framework is entirely absent from an MPhil at Cambridge. In plain terms, while Irish academics at Maynooth University are trying to redevelop what criminology means and how to study it effectively without being a fucking colonizer, he chose to go to college in the belly of the beast and learn exactly how to be a colonizer. That's what his master's is in. Criminalizing you, not understanding criminology. When 10 people died in a gas explosion in Donegal in 2022, and the families requested a meeting with the Justice Minister, O'Callaghan refused, and he said, "My job is not to be sensitive." The state paid $950 million to asylum accommodation providers in 2025. Some of those contracts went to providers with links to organised crime. When confronted with that information, O'Callaghan acknowledged that providers had used the crisis to extract higher prices. Nonetheless, has continued the contracts. They're still extracting those higher prices. In June 2002, the Academy of Achievement held an annual summit in the Four Seasons in Ballbridge. In attendance, Bill Clinton, Bertie Ahern, Eduk Barak, Bono, Jeffrey Epstein, Jim O'Callaghan. Ahern met Clinton at the government buildings the same day.